Today what we're going to be looking at are megalithic structures in different parts of the world that I have been to. And I think that's important because some people do YouTube videos of places they've actually never been. And you don't really learn that much from pictures as compared to being on location. So what we're going to be looking at is ancient structures that show cataclysmic damage, not damage from an army coming in or something like that, but natural forces that destroy these sites. And the timeline we're looking at for these cataclysms is 12,000 years ago, which is the end of the last ice age. So, does anyone know where this is? Machu Picchu, that's right. I've been to Machu Picchu 69 times, and I'm always looking at the stonework. So what you can see here is you see that line, and notice the work on top is quite crude, and the work below is polygonal interlocking blocks. So some people would say, well, the Inca made a very strong foundation, and then they didn't need to make it so good on top, but that's not the case. The Inca found, The Inca found Machu Picchu, decided that it was a holy site, and then they built their city around it. And this is the obvious evidence of that, because you see massive megalithic blocks on the bottom, pulled apart from east to west by a huge earthquake. And this is what the Inca found, and then they built on top. So you notice the difference in construction? It'll get more and more obvious as time goes on. And also Machu Picchu means the ancient mountain or the ancient place. So they wouldn't be describing that if they had built the whole thing. They found it, and then they built there. Now there are flood myths from 200 to 400 indigenous cultures that talk about the time when their world was destroyed. It could have been an island or a larger landmass. And what this coincides with is events that happened during the Younger Dryas between 12,800 and 11,700 years ago. Of course, Graham Hancock goes into this, Randall Carlson goes into this, and it was a major series of cataclysmic events that happened that destroyed most of humanity. And it was a force that came from outside of our solar system. There are different theories. Some people say it's a comet, some people say different things, but we're going to go through all of the theories related to that. So Plato, of course, with Atlantis. The timeline for the destruction of Atlantis is around 11,700 years ago. So he was describing actual events. Most academics will tell you he made up the story, but Solon, who was his teacher, learned it from the ancient Egyptians. The ancient Egyptians' record of time goes way, way, way back, long before dynastic Egypt. And so he described a city, not necessarily a continent, but the city of Atlantis, which was concentric rings like this. And what's great about modern travel and modern research and the internet is that some people believe Atlantis has been found. It's a series of concentric rings like that, and it's located over here in Mauritania. So you can see from here, it's called the Reshat structure. And you can see that the land to the west of it looks like it's sloughed off and has gone into the ocean. So it's possible that this is Atlantis that has been found. Not the continent, the city. And this is what it looks like.
Yo, what's up, buddy?
Mountains
Yeah,
to the
buddy, I
north,
bought a new one, man.
and then the ocean to the west.
What's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
And there are unknown structures or unresearched structures that are located in
Thanks
this
for
area.
noticing,
I
buddy.
know two people who have recently been there, and you know, who knows? Maybe Atlantis has actually physically been found. So I
Yo,
believe what
what's up?
happened
Oh, thanks.
around 12,000
Thanks for noticing, my man.
is that our
Yeah, I had to get a new
planet
one.
was
I
hit
had
by
to.
a series of cataclysms. And how can we
Couldn't deal with the
explain
pure pressure
properly
anymore.
the reason why our planet is tilted 23.5 degrees? It doesn't sound like that's a natural thing. It should be vertical. And quite possibly, what happened was this impact where the red dot is in Greenland.
No, I need
That was
an
only
office
discovered
chair
a
for
few
work
months ago.
too. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good for me. It's gonna be
You
good
can
for my
see right
back.
there
Good for
where it
everything.
says the
I was
Hiawatha
so
Crater.
tired yesterday.
And that was a
So I have an
meteorite
office chair. Nice,
struck
buddy. Yeah.
Greenland. And
It's
it,
nice, man.
it
It's
has
just
the
like
force of something like
I was
a
hurting
million
yesterday, and it
times
wasn't because I
that
worked out. It
of
was because I
the
sat on that
Hiroshima
rattan
bomb.
chair.
So that wouldn't simply have affected the local area. It could have
Apparently, it was
shifted
my
the
great
tilt of the
grandmother's
planet,
chair.
and then the planet restabilized at 23.5 degrees. And that's where it's
Yo,
located.
what's up, Cloud9? Thanks, buddy. Thanks, man. Am I
As
off
it
camera
says,
now?
as big as a
I think I'm off
city.
camera now. I have a new
And
new
it
setup,
left a crater
kind of.
31 kilometers across.
Am I off camera? Let's see. No, I'm pretty
Also,
squared up.
what happened to all the megafauna of North America? At that time, about 12,000 years ago, the megafauna suddenly go extinct. And some people
Swivel.
blame the Native Americans, but there were
Go for
millions
it.
of these animals.
Yeah, that too. It's
So
nice.
the theory is
It's nice,
the
man.
same thing with
Feels
the woolly
nice.
mammoths that were found flash frozen in Siberia. One day they're wandering around chewing on buttercups.
So I feel
and the next moment
if I make it
flash
serious,
frozen.
then maybe I'll get like
So I think what happened
PBs
was
too. You know what I mean?
the planet
If I
shifted
treat it
very
the
rapidly,
base serious, then I
and that
can
changed their entire climate. They went from being
put more
in a
time
temperate
into
climate
playing,
to
you know?
Arctic, and they would have died immediately. And also ancient civilizations that suddenly disappear around
Oh,
that time
God.
period, including the Clovis people. So one theory was by Allen and Dallaire, and they believed that a giant comet broke up and struck the Earth in different places, causing almost total devastation. And the date, 9500 BC, or 11,500
Oh my
years
gosh,
ago. I'm
I'm
just
tired.
going to use the ballpark figure of 12,000 years.
I'm tired, so why don't I
And
play
then
some Aztec
also
00?
Barbara Hand Cloud. She came up with a concept called catastrophobia. And she believes what happened was that the survivors of this massive cataclysm hid in caves in order to protect themselves from another impact coming, and that would be what we call the caveman period.
2-frame PB?
And it took 6,000 years before they were able to come
Then I
back
duped
out
it. Oh,
again.
nice, man.
And that's when we have the rise of Egypt and Samaria
Congrats on the
and what they
PB.
called the first major civilizations, but it wasn't. It was a renaissance. Those that survived rebuilt, and they
What
had
level?
lost most of the information from the past. So she calls the concept catastrophobia.
MBR?
And
MBR
then Dr. Paul
PA?
Laviolette, who is an American physicist, he actually believes that the core of our galaxy, which is a black hole, but it's not a black hole that constantly absorbs energy. Every once in a while, it has a burp, and it actually emits
I should have stayed in
energy
right strafe there.
that would go across the galactic plane.
That's what I'm really learning to
So
change
that's
here.
his theory.
Change that
The
left
same
strafe to right
time
strafe.
period, 12,000 years ago. And Robert Schoch, his theory is pretty close to that. He believes in solar outbursts from the sun that came
this.
out and
Like that.
scorched the atmosphere and
But,
caused
like,
the rapid
killing them.
melting of the ice sheets.
Essay.
That was the end of the last ice age. And it didn't occur over thousands
Cool,
of
man.
years.
That's sick, dude.
He believes it could have been as short as a year, that the waters of the oceans rose by
So
about
53
400
point.
feet to their
Don't think I'm
present
asking a
level.
PA
That
2
would have
P.
submersed ancient civilizations living on any coast. And that again would be the destruction of Atlantis. It wasn't that Atlantis sank, it's that the water rose. And the survivors would have to leave.
Brutal. That
to
was
find
so
somewhere
bad.
else to live.
Like, these starts are so bad.
I
Man.
absorbed all of those theories together to come up with this presentation. So, according to Robert Schoch as well, the places where this
You think with you- nice,
plasma
man,
would have
nice.
struck would have flash blasted any life form that was there. So the people, the plants, the animals would have been vaporized, and these places would not have been habitable for thousands of years, until thousands of years afterwards. And we're not left, we don't have the ancient people left behind because they all got destroyed, but what we do have are these amazing megalithic sites around the world.
I'm gonna see how this goes,
that
and then I might
standard
change levels.
archaeology can't explain, even though they very much try to. So this example here is in Cusco, Peru. It's called the Coricancha, and you can see that you can't fit a human
Where the fuck
hair
were they, man?
in the joints. And that wall is a meter thick. So it's perfectly tight fitting from the front to the back. Now the Inca
Can't
were a
stream
Bronze Age
anymore.
culture, and this is basalt stone, so they could not have built this.
Why? What?
Obviously, they
I
found it.
heard something like that, but what?
And here too, this is a
What's
site
the,
called Rachi, outside of Cusco, and you see two forms of construction. You have adobe on top, and then you have megalithic polygonal basalt below.
Why is that? I'm guessing computer issue. That's
Which
too
is
bad.
that.
My computer's
So
like
it's quite clear that the
it's
Inca
like barely good enough to
found
stream.
this and then built on top of it. And another location called the Sun Gate. Once again, you see these massive blocks that fit together perfectly, and then relative rubble on top. So this is the Inca work on top of the megalithic. And an even more obvious example. This again is the Coricancha. So what we're looking at, this is the original construction here, perfectly tight fitting. Then the Inca show up and they put some of these stones back together, but they can't get them to interlock. And then they run out of
DVR
material,
died,
then
so
they
we can't
build on
record or
top of
watch
it.
back
And
runs.
then the Spanish colonial is actually on top of that. And that's what I discovered the first time I went to Cusco, because I've been a builder most of my life. And you see this megalithic stuff, you go, how would we do that? Let alone a Bronze Age culture doing it. And my guide kept saying, no, the Inca did it. It's like, no. And then here we have the first map of Cusco. This was done probably in the 1540s.
It's too bad.
And you see the thick
I'm off to bed.
walls,
I thought
and
I'd
you
pop
see the
in
thin
and wish you.
walls.
Yo,
The
thanks,
thick
buddy.
walls
Yo,
are the
thanks, Paul. You're the
megalithic
man,
ones
dude.
that the Inca
Yeah, but he's
found.
late.
The
I had to
thin
go. I had to
walls
leave to go eat
are the
dinner, man.
Inca
Sorry, dude.
repair work.
If I went MIA.
Because Cusco means
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it,
the
homie.
center of the world.
Nice PVs, man.
So I think that's a description that the Inca found the center of the world.
The fuck, man.
Constructed. And the polygonal work. Every stone a different shape
Paul.
and
Thanks,
size,
man.
interlocking perfectly. Now that would be incredibly difficult for us to do today. So it's
Yeah,
clear that
Cloud
the
9
Inca
is also
didn't
what
do
2
this
a.m. there. That's
as
crazy,
well.
man. Thanks, buddy.
And then you see the protruding
Cloud and
knobs,
Paul.
which are
And Paul.
very much a mystery.
Huh.
And here we see the Inca repair work. You see, they tried to put some of the stones back into
Yo,
place.
thanks for being here. Appreciate it,
And then they
dudes.
had to use some filler here. And then they ran out of material, so they used other stone in order to reconstruct the site. Is this becoming quite obvious? Good, because archaeologists will fight and fight and fight and say, no, the Inca did everything. It's like, no. But this is what Inca
Good
work
name.
is. You see, it's very much precision in the front, but
I agree.
there's a gap in the back. That's not that difficult to do. So they wanted their work to harmonize with what they found. And this is Sacsayhuaman. Some of the stones at Sacsayhuaman weigh 125
Yes, baby, come on.
tons.
Let's go.
And they still interlock perfectly.
Fuck,
Any
really bad
gaps
placement.
are the
Really
the
fucking
result of
shitty
ancient
placement.
cataclysmic damage.
I don't think it's gonna work.
And whoever these ancient builders
I don't think it's gonna
were,
work. It's too
they
bad.
were also playful.
That's too bad.
'Cause you see here, that's the shape of a puma's paw that they integrated into the shape as they were constructing
Right.
it. And then you see this really rough work. That's Inca repair work. And this is one of the last Inca palaces that was built. And it's made of adobe, mud, and rough stone. So if the Inca had the capability of doing the polygonal work, the royal Inca would have had a palace made of that. So it's night, it's not simply shades of gray, it's night and day, the difference in construction style. And now we are at Ollantaytambo, and that is an Inca construction.
It sucks.
Once again, you see
That really
it's
sucks.
rough stone and adobe mud. And in the same location, we have this. This is also at Ollantaytambo. Those stones are incredibly,
It sucks.
some of them weigh 65 plus tons.
That's
And
it
the
though.
quarry is on top of that mountain. So they had to take the stone down the mountain, across the valley, and up here. Not that simple a feat. So obviously the Inca found this structure, and then they did their construction on the sides. And this makes it obvious. Also, no reconstruction was done after the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors, because any sacred site like this, the Inca were forced to abandon it. So this is like a time capsule we're looking at. And Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu means the ancient mountain. So I think that's what the Inca called it when they found it. Because this, there's a lot of construction on top of this one. This is Huayna Picchu, which means the young mountain. So I think the Inca were distinguishing the difference between what they found and what they built. And then here, you see relatively rough construction on the left-hand side and perfectly interlocking work here, with the top two rows being kind of rough, because that's an Inca reconstruction. And here again, huge stones on the bottom and rough ones on top. Now the Inca abandoned this site as soon as the Spanish
Brutal. It
arrived,
ate my input.
and
Fuck, man.
so it's like a time capsule we're looking at. And here, you see this. You see the damage here. So this wall on the right has sunk down into the ground by more than a foot. And I was there with a geologist, and she said that would be a huge earthquake pre-Inca. And then this giant stone, you see it's snapped in half. It's a huge cataclysmic event.
Like, what the fuck, man?
And then we are at Tiwanaku and Pumapunku in Bolivia. You see these massive stones here, and then the relative rubble built on top of it. So this is the original, and then this is the construction done by the Tiwanaku culture. They found a megalithic site and they rebuilt. And this is the quarry where there are two types of stone at Pumapunku. There's a gray andesite and then a red sandstone. This is where the gray andesite came from, and it's
Man,
about 70
once
kilometers
every,
away from the location.
I don't know, 10 hours?
It shows you this is the gray andesite. Those
Once
are the
every 10
famous
hours,
H
I'd say.
blocks.
But I have
This
two
massive thing is
146s
red
and
sandstone.
two
And
147s.
there are 7
one
of these
148.
H blocks, and contrary to what you've been told,
And like,
excuse me,
I think
Each
two
one is a
150s, I
different
think.
size. So they weren't produced in mold. Each one was handcrafted. So,
So
the theories of,
I'm
well,
trying to
it's a
get like the
wall or a launching
cleanest,
pad or something.
fastest start, you
doesn't
know what I
make sense
mean?
at all.
Like, obviously I'm not like succeeding in the darkroom most of
And
the time, but
excavation that was done at Pumapunku, they only went down 2 feet. And then when I asked
yeah,
the
once every 10 hours,
archaeologists,
I'd
"Well,
say you
why
get
don't
a
we dig deeper?"
147.
They simply would say, because there's nothing there. But my friend Antonio Portugal,
But I haven't
took
played
ground
Japanese that
penetrating
long.
radar,
That's
and they
brutal.
found that there are some massive
So hard, yeah.
chambers
I like it though.
underneath
It's like,
this location.
I like it.
But the problem is that the government of Bolivia believes the Tiwanaku culture built
It's like
all
after a
this,
session, it's like how many
because
guards have
they
I
were their
killed tonight? You know what I
ancestors.
mean? Like
and so excavations
Must have
here
killed,
will
like,
probably never continue.
maybe
be
like a
culturally
3-4 hour session, maybe like 1,000
harmful.
guards, maybe
But
more.
we see obvious
know.
evidence of an ancient
Kill a lot of
cataclysm,
people.
happening in this location. A giant wall of mud came from Lake Titicaca
It's awesome.
and covered and buried Pumapunku and Tiwanaku until the Tiwanaku culture rediscovered it about 2,000 years ago.
Yeah. So
And that's
thanks
the
for
precision
your
of
sticking
these
it out
stone
with me. You know.
blocks. Technically almost perfect. The Tiwanaku culture were a Bronze Age civilization. They could not have done this. These H blocks are almost laser perfect.
Must have a coronary when you make it back to the fence. Yeah.
And here you see you see the
Yeah, I love
incredible
it.
precision.
I love the
It's
rush.
such an
I love it.
anomalous, bizarre place.
I love
I've
it.
been there,
It's totally a drug.
I think, 60
The adrenaline
times.
rush. It's amazing.
Going back in a couple of weeks, it's one of the most amazing ancient places on the planet. And the
This
great
level, you
andesite
need a lot of
stone is
skill, but you also
very
need a lot of like
magnetic,
will.
whereas the red sandstone isn't.
Obviously, a lot of speed running
And
is
if
like
you
will, but
take a
like
compass and actually push it into one of the slots, it'll rotate by 270 degrees.
I don't have a
And
Japanese
when you pull it
completion
back,
though.
it goes back to its original position. So that's something I'm researching or working on right now.
Like, what the fuck, man?
And the famous Sun Gate. It weighs about 10 tons. And again, the quarry is around 60 kilometers away. And you see this fracture in it. So some cataclysmic force came and broke it in half. Then the Tiwanaku people show up. They raise it back up again. And then they carve the detail stuff, because the earlier work, and that's what's true of almost all
Man, I might do a
megalithic
little
work,
more of this, and then
is
I
that
might
there's
change
no
levels. I might
art
try something else. I might
involved.
try
It's
bunker one or
form
something.
and function. That's why the interior of the Great Pyramid doesn't have any hieroglyphs, because it was built to perform a function, not as
This
a
is too
funeral place
intense.
for the dynastic Egyptians until later.
I just want to do the setup though. I want to try my new, you know,
That shows
my
you
new
what
chair.
the Sun Gate looked like in the 16th century. And excuse me,
It's pretty good. I like
academics,
this setup. It's just pretty dope.
Academics still believe
Thanks for being here, man.
that these are the tools
I gotta move the chat, though.
responsible
The
for doing
chat's alright.
all of this work.
Got the chat right beside the TV, so it's a
Bronze chisels.
little bit distracting. My stomach is also feeling
And that
kind of weird
includes all
today.
of the work in Egypt as well. It's all bronze chisels. And Christopher Dunn, who some of you may have heard of, who's a very brilliant engineer, he used to go on TV shows with a bronze chisel and a piece of granite, and he would make one strike, and the bronze chisel would bend. And the answer the Egyptologists had to that was, well, they had 100 workers lined up on a table, and then with every strike of the bronze chisel, they would resharpen it. I don't think so. Okay, so now we are in Egypt. So what you're looking at here on the right-hand side, that is a dynastic sarcophagus. But the one on the left-hand side was originally made out of one piece of stone. And this they call pre-dynastic. So here you have incredible precision construction and not so much.
Yo, Aaron, thanks,
so
buddy. Thanks, man. Appreciate that, dude.
Because our history is being rewritten, now when you go to Egypt, they will start talking about the pre-dynastic builders, much to the chagrin of the Egyptologists. So more and more of the people who work in Egypt are admitting that there was a civilization very advanced that existed before the dynastic Egyptians, and then when the dynastic Egyptians showed up, they inherited the structures, including Giza. So this is, I mean, this is great too. This is a box, you know, some would say a sarcophagus, but it's a giant box that is in the Cairo Museum. And here you can see that's where a saw was cutting
I got these stupid armrests. I just want to rip them off, honestly, but I can't because the back is connected to the chair through the armrest. I just want to remove, like, I want to like just saw the armrest.
You can see that it was two parallel saws, one running on top of the other. And
I might just end up doing that. I'll see how I feel. This is the most comfortable chair in the store, but like
beyond diamond technology.
Not the most comfortable. Well, yeah, the most comfortable. It is.
And that shows you the saw marks there. And
but
they have
like,
this box.
I knew this would be an issue.
Stupid without any lighting.
Because I need to just get a pillow to hold it higher.
But most people simply walk right past it because no one's pointing it out to you. And then this very strange object called the schist disc. You can see that obviously it's part of a machine.
Doesn't it make you see how good Climber and Goose are at this level?
And then these curved flanges. But
yeah, they've spent a lot of time on this level, for sure. Yeah, they're really good. They're really good at this level.
That's the great thing about going to the Cairo Museum. You look at the object and then you see the description of it. So this is what it looks like. Obviously, it's part of a machine. The unfortunate thing is they decided to repair it here, like very badly. So it was found destroyed, and then they tried to put it back together. And yeah, this is one of the great descriptions. Porphyry, basalt, diorite, and slate from the Archaic period, which means pre-dynastic. And this is what they look like. They had to have been turned on lathes with a minimum of diamond tools to do that. So that's a funny slip up they make. They say, well, this is pre-dynastic. We didn't have technology to do this until the 19th century AD. And here again is another example. You see, obviously it was turned on a lathe. You can't make something like this by hand. And drill holes in granite. It's a hollow core drill. Those were not invented until very late in the 19th century AD. So what are they doing in a sarcophagus box in the Cairo Museum? Is the pattern becoming obvious so far? Good. And then the Great Pyramid. 2,300,000 stones. And recent geological study has found that the limestone that makes up the Great Pyramid is not from the Giza Plateau. It's from Cairo. So that means every one of these multi-ton blocks had to be moved across the Nile. Not that simple a feat. And that's what the actual shape looks like. It's not 4-sided, it's 8-sided. So that makes it much more complicated. And then this shows you that some of the casing stone is still in place. And
brutal,
it's called
man.
Tura limestone.
So brutal.
And the casing stone that's still there, they fit together so perfectly you can't fit a piece of paper in the joinery. And also the Great Pyramid does not sit on the Giza Plateau, it's locked into the Giza Plateau. And there are a series of shafts and tunnels on the Giza Plateau that are not accessible to the general public. But what we know is that there's a whole series of tunnels that go underneath the Giza Plateau. And that most of the pre-dynastic megalithic work is underground. But the doors are locked, so you're not allowed to access it. However, the new head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities finally had the bright idea that if you charge tourists a lot of money, they start to unlock these doors. So you can see, like all of these shafts and tunnels, this is an area where you're not supposed to go, but that's where money comes in very handy. It's easy to bribe some of the guards at Giza and other locations in Egypt to let you go and see some of the underground stuff. Like this. There are 2 full-grown men and this shaft that goes down. It's partially filled with sand, but we're dating Giza at more than 12,000 years ago. And saw marks. This is in basalt stone, which is very hard, so you need diamond-level technology to be able to cut it. And luckily, these examples are on one side of the Great Pyramid that you can actually go and look at. And the great thing is that it used to be so restricted in Egypt in terms of what you were able to look at, but now everything's starting to open up, which is great. And then, of course, the interior. This is the interior of the Great Pyramid.
Are you fucking
and
serious?
the obelisk. Now, the obelisks are made out of granite, and you can't shape granite with bronze tools. So what it means is that the dynastic Egyptians found the obelisks in place, and they carved hieroglyphics into them in a very crude manner. And the theory that we're working on now is that the Great Pyramids were energy-producing systems. They produced energy, and they transmitted the energy to the obelisks. So it's almost like an ancient Wi-Fi system. And the Sphinx. One of the most amazing things about the Sphinx is that whoever built it, they didn't shape it by chipping away with axes or adzes or whatever. They cut huge blocks out in order to achieve the shape, and then those blocks were put in front to create the Sphinx temple. So one was cut and moved, the next one was cut and moved, because you can see the weathering pattern on some of them match a pattern. And you can see that the erosion on the Sphinx's body is much, much more than the head. So obviously the head was recarved during dynastic times.
Fucking
One of the pharaohs
shit.
decided that he, was going to adopt the Sphinx, and he decided to put his portrait or his mother's portrait on as the face. And this is the work of Dr. Robert Schoch. The vertical erosion you see is water. The horizontal is wind and sand. So when you look at a climate model, that tells us that the water erosion is at least 12,000 years old. And the dynastic Egyptians arrived in the area 5,000 years ago. So this is pre-dynastic. And also, you see, of course, there's been a lot of reconstruction. The reconstruction of the Sphinx probably began during the time of Khufu. Most Egyptologists will say that Khufu built it.
What's up,
but
Dick?
it's more
Thanks, buddy,
likely
man.
that he started to repair it. And some more interesting little secrets here.
How you doing, buddy?
This wooden walkway going
Are you at
down.
Deerhurst today, man?
And then there's a stone staircase. So I was there a couple of years ago, and I noticed this platform here
Hate this
looks
fucking.
like it can come out. And so I asked our guide, Mohammed,
Dick the hero, man.
what's up with that? And he said, that's the access to the underground
How many
tunnel and
fucking
shaft system
times?
underneath the Sphinx. And that is on the backside. And fortunately that day, that grate had fallen out. And so when you pull that wooden frame away, there's a ladder inside that goes down into the Sphinx. And if you look up Mark Lehner, who's an Egyptologist, the reason why they found this is that they were doing repair work to the Sphinx. It's still being fixed in modern times. And so they pulled out a stone and they noticed that the Sphinx is hollow. So they immediately took a giant tent and put it around the opening so nobody could see it. And he spent the next 3 weeks exploring the inside of the Sphinx. And then when he came out, he said,
What?
I didn't
No.
find anything.
No. What? No. I was like, I knew it was
Quite
too good to
funny,
be
'cause if
true.
you
Who
look
is
on the
shooting me?
internet,
Who's still
you can see
alive?
pictures of him with his
What?
head sticking out of that hole.
Did I get boosted through? I think I got
And
boosted
that's just
through
another
someone, and I
close-up.
thought I
So
killed
right now
them.
there is
They're not
there's
even
a
gonna
metal
show me.
ladder inside that takes
The
you
game's
down.
even too embarrassed to show me.
And here we have the bent pyramid. Now the standard story about this is that
Let's hope.
the
That's encouraging,
builders
though. That's
were
pretty good.
building
That's
it at
pretty
a
good.
specific angle, and by the time they'd gone halfway up,
I hate
they
this stupid,
realized
like,
they had made a mistake with the angle, and so had to change it. It would take 5 seconds to make a drawing in the sand as to what angle you're supposed to be working at. So again, a great thing about having local contacts in Egypt is that they talk about a pharaoh called Sneferu, who was the builder. But in fact, Sneferu means double harmony. So I think that's the name of the pyramid, because it has 2 angles,
Are
and
you
therefore 2 different
serious?
vibrations when it was functioning. And then the red pyramid, all the casing stone is missing, and it's all broken up into little pieces. So the standard story is that at the end of the dynastic civilization, people started to take the casing stone off and take it to Cairo to build the city. But this is all rubble. So I think that these were energetic structures that overloaded 12,000 years ago and blew the casing stone off. And the interior of it, if you've never been in the Great Pyramid, or there actually are
suck a
9
dick.
ancient pyramids, and a profound construction level. Those are pre-dynastic. The Egyptian dynastic
getting better.
people attempted to build pyramids, and the great experiment is the step pyramid at Saqqara, where they built it in different levels. But standard Egyptology will tell you that that was the first attempt, and the perfection was the Giza Plateau. But it's completely backwards. Then we have the Serapeum at Saqqara. This is a series of 2 underground tunnels in which there are 25 niches, and there are 23 giant boxes in the niches, but this is one that actually never made it there, and the lid is actually back off this way. So it appears to me it's pretty obvious that there was a giant cataclysmic event that stopped the construction of the Serapeum. And you see the size of them. Each one weighs 100 tons. The lid is 30 tons. The box is 70 tons. And again, the standard story is that they were built to house very special Apis bulls, but no bull parts have ever been found in them. And in fact, of the 23 that are intact, when they were discovered in the late 19th century, all of the lids had been moved open except one. So the archaeologist at the time took gunpowder and blew the side off to see what was inside. And there was nothing inside. So this shows you the level of precision. A polished
I'm
surface,
telling you,
the lid
you get shot
would
more on
permanently
Japanese,
seal
I'm
the
telling you.
box. So
English, I think
what
you
was
get
the
lagged
function?
out more, it's slower and you can dodge the bullets. I'm not
And
even making that up.
These came from
It's
the
so
stones
relentless
from
in
Aswan,
Japanese.
which
It's
is
so
in the
unforgiving.
southernmost point of Egypt.
English
So they had to be
is
cut
so
from
forgiving because it's
moved
pretty
several
laggy.
hundred miles.
And sometimes I
And the
swear some of the
interesting thing about
shots
this
lag
one-
out or something, or
Oh.
or the guard lags
This
out or
one is that
something.
it's unfinished.
This is like,
So that further complicates it.
can't leave any freaking guard like
So that
unkilled.
shows us that they were roughed. They were
crazy.
roughed out, and then they were brought into these.
I think
tunnels.
Magoose is what,
Show
136
no
he
soot
left
marks
the
on
guard
ceiling.
unkilled?
It's pitch black.
Or
Then they
maybe
had to
that was the
maneuver
135.
The box into its niche and lower it down, and then take
He
the
didn't kill
lid
one of those
and finish it
2
inside
Aztec
and get
guards,
the
I think.
30-ton lid put on
On his
top of the
136,
box
135.
with a perfectly precision fit.
Gyges Smith,
That is
yeah,
lost into
man.
high technology.
I'm telling you,
That's
I
not a
think
bunch
this
of
year
slaves.
it's just a little slower. I don't know.
And if you look at the
It's like,
hieroglyphics,
dude,
they're
like I'm getting
incredibly
peppered,
rough.
man, and just like boom, 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 boom. It's
See,
like
the difference between
faster
hieroglyphics and the surface.
that I can
So
shoot them at
standard archaeology will tell you
is the
that
same
it was all done by the
rate
same
like
workers,
they can shoot
but
me
it's
at.
obvious
You know what
that
I
the
mean?
boxes
It's
were
like,
found by the
so it's like,
dynastic
yeah, it
people,
could be
and they
faster, but you have to
carved the
elevate your
hieroglyphics
friggin'
into the surface.
fucking game.
And this is
You
the
gotta be
interior.
faster. You can't.
Again,
English
the
is cool. You
intriguing
can like
thing that
chill
we're
on the
just
lag.
starting
You
to
know what I
work
mean?
on is
You can
figuring out why
chill on
certain
it.
types
But
of
this dude,
very
like I
hard
got shot
stone
twice
was
there.
used
That was crazy.
and brought from a great distance.
Like even
And
before entering the pod.
This box responds only to one tone, and that's ohm. If you
Like
ohm inside
my
the
muscles
box,
have to
the
be
box
faster.
Vibrates.
Like my
So that
fingers.
starts to give you an indication of the function. It was a vibratory
Like this is
instrument
insane. My
of some
reaction time
kind.
has to be faster.
Later may be used as a tomb by the pharaohs. And this is possibly the oldest calendar or zodiac in the world,
That was insane.
located at Dendera. And
What?
experts
What?
uh,
Like
in astrology can decode this, and they believe that it dates from about 11,700 years ago, and it's depicting
I want to learn
the end of a
hieroglyphs, man.
cataclysmic period.
I want to learn how to read
That's
hieroglyphs.
a copy. The original is
The
in
Rosetta
Paris.
Stone. I want to.
Thank you, Napoleon.
I think I have to learn Greek or whatever
And
too.
of course, these things, what looks like a helicopter, looks like a tank, and looks like a submarine or a plane or something like that. They look like that. I've been there 7 times, and every time I look, I go, yeah, that's what they look like. But supposedly what they actually are is that succeeding pharaohs, some of them were so jealous of their ancestors that they would simply go to where their ancestor had carved hieroglyphics and carve deeper into it
Like
to obliterate
this guy, if
the
you don't kill
ancestor.
him,
And especially
he's gonna like
Ramses
ruin
II.
your friggin' chances.
His name
Always,
is all
always,
over the
always.
place. So it's believed that actually it's a very complex series of different layers of hieroglyphics.
It's like it's too fast for me, man.
They still look like a helicopter.
It's like this
No,
Japanese is
thing
too
to me.
fast for me. I was really comfy in the
Then we have
lag
the
of the English.
Osirion.
It was like slow
I'm
motion.
not in there because I necessarily like to have my picture taken all the time. I'm there for a sense of scale. But we've only been allowed inside once. And you can see the size of those stone blocks. Once again, it's Aswan granite, so it was moved hundreds of miles from southern Egypt. And then the walls in the back are actually quartzite from Cairo. And the whole structure is underground. That's how it was discovered. They actually broke through the roof, and then they went down and found it.
Yo, Rolls, what's up, man? Thanks, buddy.
And
Rolls are Ferrari, buddy. Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Fascinating term that Egyptologists like to use is
but if IFX like
if they can't figure out what it actually is,
my starts aren't consistent.
Tomb, but a
if you see
tomb.
like Clemens's starts are super consistent. It like his isn't like Luke Sklar's start. Like this is like the dreams without getting shot there, right?
So that's a core drill about that
big. Clemens, he does this, right? He shoots here first, and then he goes like this, and then he draws the guards,
but you find them all over,
which takes, you know, like an extra, maybe half a second, maybe, but it's super, like, much more consistent for the rest of the level and everything. Sets up everything better. Me, I'm not consistent at all. Like, my consistency is like 0.
Present day, diamond drill. So that's obviously lost ancient high technology.
But that's okay, because I'm going for like this, like the one dream fast run. You know what I mean? Like that's fucking so rude.
Well, because I got to go to Egypt with Christopher Dunn, who's a master machinist, and he can measure the feed rate, which is the penetration rate of the bit, and he said it's 500 times more efficient than what we have now, because it's penetrating at about 2 millimeters per revolution, which is way beyond diamond level technology. And here's another interesting piece of stone. You can see that it's cracking and falling apart. And I was there with geologist Susan
What a run,
Moore,
man.
and she
I really didn't need to get shot in the side there.
Hit by an incredibly
seen new Lamborghini Countach video? Nice.
And that relates to the idea of the
That's
solar
sweet, man.
plasma strikes. That the high heat hit the
Lamborghini
stone and caused
Countach,
it to expand.
nice car, man.
And this also is
Sweet car.
in an area that used to be open to the public, but now it's closed to the public because I've made it famous. And this shows you the grain structure. You see, on
Insane
the outside,
run. This is
it's
the
very
run.
fine,
This is an insane
and then
run.
inside, crystals have expanded, so that's heat expansion.
Come on.
And here too, this excuse me, this is a
Come on.
and you see the surface is here. The surface is sloughing
fine.
off. That's not simply from wind and sand. That's from a blast of heat, probably a solar plasma strike that hit.
It's fine.
And here again, this is the central access at, or the central avenue at Karnak. And when you take a compass, everything should be north, south, east, and west.
Oh, there's a new Countach? That's crazy.
So that's telling me that it was constructed
Uncomfortable as
when the
hell.
planet was vertical. So I think that happened about 12,000 years ago.
That sounds sweet, dude.
And then these things, these giant statues
Like
made
who
of granite
even?
at,
What? Like
Luxor,
what?
They're all.
What?
Everyone states that these were made
Sitting
by
76 LP
Ramses
400.
the second.
Oh wow.
Here's his
LP
cartouche.
400 LP.
But if you notice, the cartouche goes over a dagger. So
6'6" still
tells
not how
me
he fit.
that this was done during the time of Ramses.
Nice, man.
But the statues themselves are much, much
That's
older.
fun.
And every one of them that they have found, they found buried underground. And I think, again, that's the result of a giant cataclysmic event that happened. And this is the work of Christopher Dunn. So you can see that the precision is incredible. And during Ramses' time period, the hardest tool material they had was bronze, as in bronze chisels. And you can't shape bronze, or you can't shape granite with bronze. So these, I believe, very much are pre-dynastic. Then the Colossi of Memnon. The figure itself is 720 tons. And that's one piece of stone. And then the base.
Yeah, guys, I might try a
300
different level
tons.
in like a minute or
And the
two. I'll
quarry
probably
for
do
the
that.
quartzite is 400 miles away in Cairo. So again, I believe this.
I'm not going to stream for super long tonight. I might stream maybe another
to the surface here,
20 minutes or more, half an hour. Sorry, sorry to be downer, but
with me,
I don't know. I don't
and
think
she
I'm
believes
stream
that's
super
heat
long.
damage because the figures are facing east. So sunrise comes up, solar plasma strikes the front of the statue, vaporizes all of the vegetation and other life forms there, and then 5,000 years ago, the dynastic Egyptians show up and they adopt all of this. And this is another giant statue. Kurt's there for scale, but it was originally one piece of stone and granite and weighed more than 1,000 tons. That's one piece of stone. How would you transport that during dynastic times? Again, it's shattered into pieces, and the back side of it is completely scorched. So that again.
Come on, not one gun. You can give me one gun.
Striking the object and making it explode about 12,000 years ago. And then the Valley of the Queens and Valley of the Kings.
Crazy.
There's no way that those tunnels in the Valley of the Queens and Valley of the Kings were made during dynastic times, because the scale is just enormous.
Is there a strat that'll allow you to grab a nade pulled?
And they're 300
blow up the drone guns. Yeah, that's
so I think the dynastic people.
It's actually been it was recently done by Goose, by
and here too, this is
our White Goose.
In the area
Ryan
of
White.
the Valley of the Queens and Valley of the Kings.
And they called it the Goose Egg.
In a tunnel underground for half an hour.
And I think he got
And then when we came out,
136 with it.
we asked the guard who let us in.
138, 136.
He said the Valley of the Queens and Valley of
Yeah.
the Kings are one entity. They connect. So that's a
It's a pretty good strat if you want to get
system that was built.
like a 130.
Not built by the dynastic people, but pragmatically
136
used by
and up,
them as tombs.
which is fucking insane times, but.
Sorry?
I don't know.
At least a couple of miles.
That note, small guy.
But again, that's the whole
Bentley.
thing. One
So
common
that's
thing is to
freaking-
say, a lot of ancient Egypt is still underground, but most Egyptologists will say under the sand. But it's not. It's constructions underground. And that's
against
why
the door
they
ceiling.
limit access to it, because
That back and
it
forth
blows
drone,
the whole
yeah.
theory that the dynastic
Yeah,
people
that's
built
sick, man.
everything. What's that? Well, they were a Bronze Age culture. Steel
Oh,
wasn't
that
invented,
was so good.
until
That was a good
about,
run.
I think 700 BC.
That's pretty much what I want to do. Like, that's what I'm playing for, that run.
Yeah.
And if he's in the main frame, then I do
it's
the
probably,
thing.
I don't. Well, this is the case.
So
that
like
I'm
it will come. I don't like
presenting before you.
I don't have to grind
now,
it
this
out
is at Elephantine Island.
for like the next 2
this
hours. 'Cause
giant
it probably
piece
might not
of
happen, but like
granite.
it'll happen in the next few sessions, hopefully.
I have no idea what it was. It was never finished, but I have no idea what it was supposed to be. But again, you
Just
can't
nice
do this
shooting
work with
guys, you know
bronze
what I mean?
tools.
Just coming in here and shooting a bunch of dudes. It's cool.
And then
I
the
like it.
unfinished obelisk at Aswan that weighs about 1,100 tons, and it was never finished. Work suddenly stopped. And I think the work suddenly stopped during the period of the cataclysms about 12,000 years ago. We're going to see that site after site after site. Places that were active, lost ancient high technology being employed to do the work, and then suddenly work stopped. And this is inside one of the pits at the unfinished obelisk. And what's kind of intriguing is this line here. That's a giant crack. So they had been able to make the horizontal dimension of the width, but as they were cutting down into the granite to match that distance, they came upon this giant crack and simply abandoned the project. And these amazing scoop marks you see here, this is again an example of lost ancient high technology being employed. We don't know what kind of machine it was, but it's clearly not the stone hammers
Was the lady
lying all over the ground for you to pick up and pound away at the block, because the stone hammers are made out of basically a stone which is the same hardness as the granite itself. So how efficient is that going to be at cutting stone? But they do that to, you know, as a way
sounds
to
baller,
try to explain how this works.
Vitex.
A number of my videos shows members of our tour group taking one of the stone hammers and pounding away at it. And as the dust is coming off the stone they're trying to shape, the hammer's falling apart.
Oh, the
Then
hood
we're at a site
ornament.
called
That's
Tanis,
crazy.
which is in the Nile Delta. And in order to get there, you have to drive about 2.5 hours
That's cool.
through the Nile Delta, which is all beautiful farming and intense agriculture. Then you get to this hill, which has, I think, 5 plants growing on it. It's devoid of life.
Spirit of
And
ecstasy.
also the surface is like walking on the moon.
Not a
'cause
kidnapping.
It's like flour that comes up. So I think this is
The
another
spirit
example
of
of where
ecstasy.
there was a plasma heat strike in this location and just blew the whole thing to pieces. Because also it's about 1,000, at least 1,000 kilometers from the Aswan quarry, and we find tons of giant granite blocks, but they're all broken. And this is going to be controversial, but you see this has some very crude hieroglyphics in it, or on it. Then you have these massive deep ones, like that. And if you put your finger in and move around the contours, it's like a router was put in to shape it. And again, most likely the dynastic Egyptians had at very best meteorite iron. And so meteorite iron is not too efficient at being able to cut into granite like that. Actually, I'd prefer if you leave questions to the end. And here you see this discoloration.
Really, not another fucking like.
That's heat scorching of this statue. And part of the arms are gone, and the torso. Every stone there shows heat damage, and there's nothing intact there. And this is a dynastic reconstruction of some of the stone blocks that they found. Some with hieroglyphics on them. And this is quartzite. Now the light color is what natural quartzite is, and the discoloration is from at least 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit scorching. So again, that goes towards the idea of heat scorching from plasma strikes. And this foot,
Oh, what?
according I can't
What?
remember which archaeologist it was
Definitely
that was
getting
working
better.
on this site in the 19th century.
Definitely getting better.
But this foot was part of a giant statue, and the parts of it are lying all over the place. And he estimated that it was originally 150 feet tall, made of one piece of stone. Again, that's not something that copper or bronze chisels can achieve. And this is my wife with the lid of a giant box, also at Tanis, and you can see the surface is basically sloughing off.
Wait, who was shooting me
That's
there?
not the result of wind and sand. That's heat scorching.
Man.
And then this is a quartzite statue, and you can see the toes are melted because quartzite is mainly glass. It's a silica glass, so if you strike it with very high heat, it melts. Whereas with granite, because granite is made up of different types of
Where my
minerals,
ammo count?
It basically explodes if you hit it with high heat, or the surface will start sloughing off in an uneven pattern.
For sure,
and
man.
this statue as well. It's quartzite, and the lighter color is the natural color, but the rest of it is all heat damage. There were also 12 or 13 giant obelisks found, all broken to pieces, and somehow, originally they were one piece of stone, and they were moved almost 1,000 kilometers from the quarry. And this is another example of the heat scorching. You see the light color is what quartzite normally looks like, and then the discoloration is from heat damage. And now we have the Osiris shaft. That's the second pyramid in the background. No, actually, that's the Great Pyramid in the background. And this is the causeway. Actually, this is the causeway going up to the second pyramid. And so the Osiris shaft is one of those things that was never open to the public. And there's a reason for that. But the new head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities decided that they could make a lot of money if they opened up these places which had been forbidden before. So before him was a guy called Zahi Hawass. And the new guy, whose name I can't remember, but he's very forward-looking that way. You can rent the Osiris shaft. It costs $2,500 for 2 hours.
Oh,
so it's not open to the general public, but you can rent it. And by doing that, he's opened up Pandora's box. Yeah, it was opened up, I think, about two years ago. So the entrance, you can see, is sideways under the causeway that goes to the second pyramid. And then this is going actually inside into the bedrock. And that's looking up at the grate. That was the only view we used to have, is looking down the grate into it. And then that's looking down into level 1. So level 1, you take a ladder and you go down 30 feet into the bedrock, which is limestone. That's my wife coming down the ladder. And then this is the first room. It's about 15 feet wide and 35 feet long. And this is level 2, which goes down 100 feet. And in level 2, there are 6 niches containing 2 boxes. And again, you see the cataclysmic damage to this box. It literally looks like it exploded from the inside. So it wasn't originally a tomb, it was some kind of energetic device that overloaded. And then this is the other box with the lid ajar, and it's coated with this strange goo-like material. And luckily, I was able to get a sample of that, and it's being analyzed right now as to whether it's organic or inorganic or whatever. And the stone is called dacite, and dacite does not exist in Egypt. So it was brought from somewhere else. And that shows you the interior of it. And that's level 3. So you go down 30 feet, 100 feet, and then 60 feet. And there's a pool of water in the bottom. And that's Yusuf Albion.
Yo, what's up, Eric,
buddy?
buddy?
On top of a
what's up, man?
box that weighs something like 60 tons with the lid still on.
Oh, how you doing, man?
And next time we go, we're going to try to see if we can get to the side area, because there's actually a tunnel off to the right-hand side here that may actually connect with the system under the Sphinx. So it could be a whole honeycomb network that's underneath the Giza Plateau. Okay, now we're in Lebanon.
Playing the games to take a guess.
This is Mount Hermon.
I'm okay. How are you? I'm good, man. Thanks, man.
For where the Watchers came down. And this is the quarry at Baalbek.
That was nice, man. It wasn't Sakio. Thanks, man.
Which is open to the general
public. One sec.
And this is a stone that is still in the quarry. That's Yusuf for sense of scale. And it weighs approximately 1,000 tons and was successfully cut from the bedrock, but was never transported.
I am my love. One sec.
And that's a more updated one. That's Patricia Lehman over here. So for sense of scale. And this is the bigger one. This is the one they call the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. And when we went last time, which was about a month ago, we found out that it was actually a very bad translation from the French. It's actually supposed to be, the original name is the Foundation Stone, rather than the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. But it's 1,200 tons, and this was taken, I think, 3 years ago. There's Stephen Mailer and me for scale. And that shows you, again, just the sense of scale of it. And recently we went back, about a month ago, and they fully excavated the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. And there's another one here on the left-hand side, which has been fully excavated now. So again, this just simply shows you the sense of
creator,
scale.
man. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for the nice word, man.
Then this is the one that they've uncovered.
King, right? Yeah, right. You're king, man. You're crushing it, dude. You're crushing it in GoldenEye.
And once again, just for
I need to do some video juggling one sec.
Construction was never completed. It was never completely cut from the bedrock. So
what do you think about Baba Skip?
Example of when the cataclysmic event happened.
Yo, what's up?
Suddenly stopped.
Corey. All right.
And these are called the Trillathon. This is at Baalbek itself, which is about a mile away. And each one of these weighs 1,000 tons. Now, there are 3 different time periods of construction.
MGS Baba Skip.
During the Middle Ages, they converted this into a fort because they didn't want the
Metal Gear Solid
to enter and conquer them. Then before that, you have the Roman time period. And then before that, you have the megalithic time period. And once again,
sorry, I'm just doing some video juggling.
Itself, you see construction was underway, and then suddenly it stopped. This is a whole wall of 800 ton blocks that it's off to the side, and the stones fit together so well that once again you can't fit a piece of paper in the.
We are all kings in our own kingdoms. That's the point. That was the point.
And that gives you more detail
because we're all
up on top of that wall.
It's like how.
This is the Middle Ages.
How are you
reconstruction on a
in
smaller
your
scale? But even
own
when
kingdom?
You
know.
simply look at the patina of the stone, you can see that's incredibly heavy weathering
as opposed to like
as compared to up here. So this
a philosophy of like negativity or whatever. You know what I mean?
The discoloration tells you that this is much older than that. And this is simply an updated photo of our recent trip there. And then on the inside of Baalbek,
who is Eric P?
People for a sense of scale. And these are also 800-ton blocks.
Some newbie chick found it by accident.
The,
2.5 minutes. That's amazing.
More or less Middle
by
Ages
accident. Wow.
reconstruction on top. And these, I don't know. They say this is Roman construction, and maybe, but it's also possible that this is much, much older, and what the Romans did is simply the fancy carving on the surfaces, because that's another interesting feature about megalithic work, is that almost always you never find artwork on the surface, and you don't find detail work. It's just form and function. And this is my wife for a sense of scale. This one here, again, is probably 800 tons. And
wow.
The staircase is obviously later. And then this is much rougher Roman, probably Roman construction on top of smaller blocks. And then we have 300 granite columns. And the granite has been identified, the pink granite came from Aswan, which is 1,000 miles away. And the gray granite is from Turkey. And these are so perfect in terms of their contours that they were originally 6 meters or about 20 feet tall. And the only way they could have been made is on a giant lathe, which wasn't invented until obviously much, much later. So this is another anomalous aspect. So you see the almost perfect contours here. And almost all of them are broken. Like this, you can see, but then you see this, the central hole here. That's probably where the centering tool was put in on the giant lathe in order to turn them. And then this is the other end. You have 5 holes. That's where the locking piece would come in to lock it, and then it would rotate. But motors were not in existence even in Roman times, so this, again, is a major anomaly. And there are at least 300 of them in bits and pieces around the Baalbek site. And yeah, this is the Temple of Bacchus. And it's most likely that these are multi-section columns built by the Romans, but then the foundation itself was found by the Romans. And that shows you how tight the joinery is. Almost perfect. Okay, now we're at Petra, which I'm sure most, if not all of you, have heard of. But what you probably don't know is Petra is 7 miles long. Of course, you know the famous scene from Indiana Jones where they show the treasury. That's 3% of Petra. This is what's called the Seek. This is how you get to the treasury, and it's 1 mile long. It's not just like a few hundred feet you go and then it's there. And it has these water channels that are carved into actually both sides into the bedrock. And this stone, according to the geologists, has a hardness of 7 out of 10. So once again, you'd probably need diamond technology in order to be able to cut them. And the standard archaeological story is that people called the Nabateans constructed this around 200 BC. But I don't think so. I think they found it abandoned and then they repaired it, just like the Inca did and like the dynastic Egyptians did. And also, since this was my second time, the first time you ever go anywhere, all you can do is get a general view of what something looks like. But then after that, because I'm focusing on cataclysmic damage and signs of that, then after looking at video that I took the first time, I kept seeing these discolorations in this material. So I went back with Susan Moore, the geologist, and on all of the western faces, you have scorch marks and melting of the stone. So I think this is another candidate for the solar plasma strikes that happened, we believe, and Dr. Robert Schoch believes, happened about 12,000 years ago. And then you have, this is the part you all know of. This is the treasury. But if you look carefully, you'll see discoloration on the right-hand side. And so it's my theory that the Nabateans, who were there, and they were very successful traders.
That was 100% my fault.
They became so wealthy eventually that they hired some sculptors to come from Greece and to do the ornamentation on the surfaces of the treasury. And then after that, they probably ran out of money. But it also explains why there are these shallow stairs carved in the right and left-hand sides. That's for the sculptors to be able to climb up and do their work. Because if this was part of the original construction, that's actually quite, that's quite an eyesore to have that. And this is the back wall. Again, you can see it's almost like a scooping machine was cutting away at the bedrock. And another view of the treasury, it has a giant chamber inside, and also there's another level underneath it, which some have stated is a chamber that's 300,000 cubic feet in size. So not the work of hand tools. And it's just chamber, like nobody knows what the function of these was or how they were done. They couldn't have been done using hand tools,
like,
obviously,
really?
which would have been present in the Nabatean time. So who did this and what were they? And as I said, Petra is 7 miles long, so you just keep walking and it's wall after wall after wall. It's not simply the treasury by itself. It just keeps going. It takes a full day to get to the end and back if you go by foot. And there again. But here you see really heavy weathering, which is probably much more than the standard time frame. And it's very simple in design. Only the treasury has fine ornamentation. And here again is where somebody cut some steps in to the surface to get up to an aqueduct that was carved into the surface here, and then later repaired by the Nabatean people with clay pipe. And there are just so many of them. There were hundreds of these carvings into the bedrock. So many that they turned 2 into bathrooms. I mean, there are hundreds of these things. And then here, these 3 columns here are one piece of stone and are part of the bedrock itself. And then these are later repairs done, probably during the Nabatean or Roman times, because you see it's multiple sections.
Like, what the fuck, man?
This is one piece. And then when we get up close, you see this is the machine that was doing the cutting, basically at almost a 45-degree angle, almost like a rake moving. And Petra is full of tool marks. But there's no gap. It's not like there were 4 tools and then we moved into the slot. It's just this continuous. And there are 3 levels. There's a roughing tool, a middle tool, and then a finishing tool. And this is another chamber. That's my wife, Irene, there. And so this chamber is approximately 300,000 cubic feet in size. And this is the Roman work. So you can see very, very rough. And this is a staircase that finally goes up to the, more or less the end of Petra after about 10 kilometers. The left-hand side you can see is carved into the bedrock. And then the right-hand side is a later repair. And this is what you find at the end. The so-called monastery. So you can see it's quite simple in design, and this is probably what the treasury initially looked like until the Nabateans arrived and hired the Greek sculptors to do the finishing work.
Like, who? Man.
But again, it's simply the sense of scale.
I'm telling you, get shot way more often in Japanese. I'm not even like memeing.
See, there's a person there, and that's how big it is. And
thanks for being here, by the way.
There's so many of these chambers that goats and people live in some of them. And they're parking their trucks in them too. So Petra's one, actually, usually I do a lot of research before I go to a place so that I'm familiar with what I'm going to be looking at. For some reason with Petra I didn't bother, and that was great because I was just blown away. When we started walking through the Sikh, I thought we'd be like 200 feet. We just kept walking and walking, and I asked the guide, how long is this? And he said, it's about a kilometer and a half. And then he's the one who told me that it's about 12 kilometers long. And then if you walk, or actually if you drive for another half an hour, you get to Little Petra, which is an extension of this. And here a guy has decided to turn one of these chambers into a tea house. And now we're in Jerusalem, which actually I haven't been to.
I appreciate it.
But
likelihood of completion is not very high,
wall,
but
the western wall. And you can see the size of the blocks in terms of construction. A series of stones about 500 tons apiece. So those are pre-Israeli. But we're going to be going next March in order to have a look at that. And this gives you another view of just the sense of scale. See, much, much smaller and rougher work on top of the megalithic stuff. And you also find a lot of megalithic work in Greece, like this. And Italy, very similar to the cart ruts found on Malta. And this is Japan. This is in Kyoto. Easter Island. This is a site called Vinapu. And again, it's as precise a construction as we find in Peru and Bolivian places, whereas all the other work is much, much rougher, done with volcanic stone. So this again shows us that before the Polynesians arrived, somebody was there. And that's what the oral tradition said as well. We were fortunate to be able to talk to one of the elders of Easter Island, who's one of the oral tradition experts. And I said, how far back does human habitation go on Easter Island? And he said, how far back do you want to go? So he said it was a meeting place, it was a transportation hub for thousands of years, connecting the west coast of South America with Polynesia and even India and places like that, because its original name is the land of weeping waters, because there are these giant lava chambers underneath the island that are natural, but it's obviously, if you're a seafaring people, it would be a strategic place to stop in order to refurbish your ship. And of course, it's been recently discovered that all of the 950 of these statues on Easter Island are one piece of stone and full bodies. So they are they are buried. Oops, they are buried up to their necks. And there are two styles. You can see here, this is the part of the excavation being done in the quarry. And this is the first one that was uncovered by Thor Heyerdahl and his crew. So that's
really, I appreciated you being here, watching me die over and over again.
Shocked with us when we went to Easter Island, and he's of course the expert in terms of stone weathering. He's dated the Sphinx at least 10 to 12,000 years old, and when he looked at these, he said, "I have no problem in assuming some of these are 10,000 plus years old, based on weathering patterns, and then the buildup of soil and the sloughing off of the material from the mountainside coming down." And the local Polynesian lady that we visited when we went there the first time, I asked her about this, and she said, no, they would do the rough work, and then they would dig a hole and put the moai into the hole in order to be able to do the finishing work. And then I said, and then how would they get them back out again? It's always the simple, pragmatic questions, that like shock tour guides no matter where you go. And okay, now we're in Mexico, and there's not a lot of megalithic stuff in Mexico, but there's a little bit here and there. See, these blocks are quite big, relatively. And this is the standard form of construction that you find in Mexico. It's volcanic ash with rough volcanic stone. But this staircase is absolutely incredible. Super tight fitting stone blocks going all the way up. This is basalt, and people like the Aztecs and the Teotihuacan people basically didn't know metals at all. They didn't know bronze, obviously not steel. Most of their tools were made of obsidian, which is glass. And you can't use obsidian to shape stone. So these stones here are a real anomaly as far as I'm concerned, because there's no mortar in between. They interlock beautifully, and then the workmanship on top is really crude. So clearly, whatever this staircase was predates the work done on top of it. And then you have the Tula warriors. Again, Mr. Van Daniken would say that they're aliens. I asked a local guide who was there, and he said they actually represent warriors of Kukulkan. And they're not impressive in terms of their size. He said this chest plate is a shield, and then the headdress represents the feathered serpent, or Kukulkan, or Quetzalcoatl. And also the so-called ray gun that's in one hand. He said that's actually a very small crossbow that they would use. So it's only about that big. And then, because in the other hand, they're holding on to arrows. So rather than being a laser beam or whatever. Now these are really weird. These are artifacts found in the main museum in Mexico City, and they're from the Olmec area, but this again is obsidian, which is a volcanic glass. And this to me looks like it was turned on a lathe. So I think they're out of place artifacts that were found by the Olmec and other people, and then reutilized for another purpose. These, of course, would be great earplugs. And this giant statue of Tlaloc, again, this is probably prior to any civilization we know of. I think Tlaloc is one piece of basalt weighing 100 tons. And then these spools, which are made of obsidian glass. That's the great thing about doing a tour is that you almost always have an engineer who joins you. And so, luckily, I can't remember his name right now, but I was looking at these things going, those are perfect. So I asked the engineer to come over, who was a manufacturing engineer. And I said, how do you think those, or do you think those were made by hand? And he said, no, that's impossible. So again, out-of-place artifacts that show up. And that's the side view of what they look like. And they're actually in 2 different museums too. And then again, the staircase is kind of megalithic. This is at Chichen Itza. I think it shows signs of cataclysmic damage when we compare it with this staircase, which is kind of crudely made. And again, these giant blocks here, as compared to the really rough work here. And that, of course, is the most famous aspect of Chichen Itza. And the stairs are actually a lot smaller than these ones for some reason. Okay. And this was a surprise. This is a site called Mitla, which is in Oaxaca. And obviously you can see the scale of this column made of basalt.
God, I hate that boost through, man.
These header blocks.
Oh, man.
Compared to this style of construction, these couldn't have been done by the same culture. This was obviously their first, was inherited, and then they reincorporated it into their the wall that they were making. And that's about 10 tons. I think it's, again, the result of cataclysmic damage and was made by a very advanced civilization long before the supposed native builders.
Stanford University. This program is brought to you by the Stanford Humanities Center. For more information, please visit us at shc.stanford.edu.
Good evening. My name is Grant Parker. On behalf of Stanford's Department of Classics, I'd like to welcome you to the 12th Lawrence Eichner Lecture on Classical Art and Culture.
Welcome back to another installment of Vintage Egyptologist. Today we are going to be introducing a topic that I know all of you are interested in, hieroglyphs. By the end of today's video, you are going to know the origin of the term hieroglyph, how to differentiate between hieroglyphs, hieratic, and demonic, where to start reading an ancient Egyptian inscription, and the 3 different uses of hieroglyphs within a text.
So let's begin with the most elementary aspect of the topic today, the terminology. Now, almost everyone has heard of hieroglyphs. It goes back to the ancient Greek term ta hieroglyphica. The a sacred script, and by glyph, it really means the sacred carved script.
And the ancient Egyptians themselves called it Medu Neter, divine words. No matter what other scripts came into the Nile Valley, the Egyptians never
This video
abandoned
sucks.
hieroglyphs because it had religious significance.
Now, hieroglyphs, as the name implies, are a sacred script, a formal script, and they should be carved.
Computer's too hot, man. Need a new computer. Yo. Kevin's.
For Stanford's
Where is buddy?
Department of Classics,
Yo.
I'd like to welcome you to the 12th Lawrence Eichner Lecture on Classical Art and Culture.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks to you, man. Appreciate it, man.
A lecture series aimed at presenting classical antiquity to a wider public.
I think I might be done too pretty soon.
Okay, I want to thank Jeff Berwick for inviting me here. And I want to show you our history, but much more important, what we term forbidden archaeology. This is...
My computer's so slow, man. Like, it's probably lagging too. Like, it's just fucking garbage. Am I friggin'... Why is this jumping? Oh, news video. My computer sucks, man. Why the fuck is my gameplay shaking? Like, what the fuck? Why? Why would it do this?
Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. Please subscribe now to get the latest ancient history news and independent research from around the world. Many of you will have heard of and listened to the Earth Ancients podcast, created and presented by research investigator and author Cliff Dunning, who has an outstanding award-winning show featuring a different guest every episode, and he also covers many different topics. I've linked the Earth Ancients website in the description below, and I would recommend the podcast to all. In mid-August 2021, the guest on the Earth Ancients podcast was researcher and friend of mine Manu Saifzadeh, who released earlier this year an outstanding new book with a foreword by Graham Hancock titled Under the Sphinx, which I've also linked below in the description. Everyone who knows him or has read his work knows that Manu is a meticulous, independent researcher, and in his new book he takes the reader on a journey to ancient Egypt to explore what it is the Egyptians had to say about the elusive Hall of Records. If you want to learn more and discover what was in a wooden container under the Sphinx and how it affected Egyptian civilization, then I would certainly recommend this book. But as well as discussing the content in his fascinating new book, on the podcast Manu spent more than half an hour discussing the 51 images I published at the end of July, which showed the Great Pyramid Queen's Chamber northern shaft from bottom to top. Manu explains the background extremely well. He explains the importance of the pictures and recaps the anomalies, what they could imply, and how they tie into...
Yeah, I might play for another, like, 5 minutes or so, to be honest.
Asks all the right questions,
sorry to be so negative, Nancy, but...
And so I kindly asked them if I could publish the section on the Ancient Architects channel. Both Cliff and Manu agreed to my request, and Cliff sent me the footage, and that's what you'll be seeing for the rest of this video. To help the viewers along, I've annotated the video with images to help you visualise the topics of conversation, and I think you'll agree it's a fantastic piece of content. I would of course recommend you listen to the entire podcast on the Earth Ancients website. So that's enough from me, so now I'll hand you over to Cliff Dunning.
So we have a great gift for you as a part 2. Again, this is Manu Saves the Day. And we have he has some new information on the Great Pyramid known as the Khufu Pyramid in the Queen's Chamber, the northern shaft. Okay, Manu, it's all up to you. What is the latest?
Okay, so we had published a couple of weeks ago by a video blogger called Matt Simpson, who runs Ancient Architects. He was able to get a hold of some very precious images. And why are they precious? Well, because they weren't published for almost 20 years. Only a few of that set were published by Zaya Was in
Like, come on.
2014.
Yo, what's up, Erica, buddy? How you doing, man? Thanks, man. I'm gonna play for another maybe like 4 minutes.
That was it. So we never heard much.
I put in a good 2 hours. I have a new setup here,
which comes out of the
so I'm pretty happy with that.
north part of the
I'm comfy, you know.
to the unknown, because we
A little more sustainable. I'm trying to take your approach. Play maybe an hour or two, like
2002,
a little more
when,
frequently. You know what I mean?
robot by the name of Pyramid Rover was sent up that shaft.
Good deal. Be on an event. Nice,
See
nice,
what's at
buddy.
the end of
Thanks,
it. And
man.
if you might remember, Rudolf Gantovik, of course, is the one who explored the southern shaft.
Yeah, I'm not like playing in my bed anymore, which is nice. I'm like playing separately from where I sleep. You know what I mean? It's like huge. It's nice. It's nice to like change it. It's that whole thing. Task and short intervals. Yeah, exactly. I'm conscious of that. I'm observing you doing that. Nice. Thanks, man. Yeah. Pretty conscious.
Into the northern shaft, but only a few meters up, because there is a bend, a 45-degree bend to the west, to the east. I mean, to the west, to the left, in other words.
Yo, thanks, man.
This robot was not able to make that turn. Okay, so what he did is he was able to take a picture of the continuation of the shaft, but that was it. And so the project, that was the end of the project. And he was, as you know, not allowed to come back to Egypt to continue the project with a more advanced robot.
That was really bad.
So then the project was on ice basically until 2002, and then the Pyramid Rover team came.
Telling you, man, on Japanese you get shot way more.
Producing it, and there was of course a big TV special, because it had to do with Gantenbring's door, and the hole was drilled into Gantenbring's door to see what's behind the door, and then they found another door or another slab of stone. Right, and that was basically the big television spectacle. That same mission, a few days after that television spectacle,
More aggressive. Oh wow.
go into the northern shaft. This is the Pyramid Rover, and
Dang.
they're the first, technically, to explore
That
the northern
sucks.
shaft past the point of wow. Okay, so they made it past that 45
That sucks.
turn. They went all
I'd
the
rather
way
have worse auto aim and
They
less
went
aggressive guards.
to the end and found another door, just like on the
It's
southern
interesting.
side, okay, they took video, they took footage, pictures, whatever, but like I said, it was never published. The public never got to see except for two papers that are very difficult to actually find because the papers are not
See the new frigate A strat? I did, man. I did. I'm terrible at the level though at agent, so like I would pace like 27, 28 or something. You know what I mean?
Screenshots from the video taken by Pyramid Rover in the northern shaft of the Queen Chamber. There were 51 images, and he put a video together.
Same, LOL, no way.
He narrates, and then he gives his observations, and he made some very keen observations.
Yeah.
Now here's the big. There's several.
I was gonna try different levels tonight, but I just
what looks like an opening in the middle
started
of
playing
the
this
shaft.
again.
So remember, this shaft was supposedly sealed, right? So as far as we knew, when the shaft was originally discovered by Raymond Dixon in 1872, both of the shafts on the north and south side of the King Chamber were sealed. Okay, so that means the builders made them, they sealed them, and that was the end of it. Okay.
Hard play, we just like, yo, thanks, man.
That are open to they go outside the pyramid.
Yeah,
okay?
that's
and
true.
Go outside the pyramid and Gatton found the openings and he repaired the openings, protected the things, and did all those things. And before him, there were researchers also that went up there and they saw the openings out of the King Chamber. But the Queen Chamber shafts, no exits, okay? No entry, no exit until the entries were discovered. And then a few decades later, an amateur researcher like myself called Morton Edgar and his brother investigated these shafts.
I'm getting shot so many fucking times.
How deep these shafts are, and they basically shot metal rods up the shaft, and this is in 1928. When
Telling you, man, English. I might go back to English. I'm not even lying.
He was only able to advance it to about 175 feet. Okay, so why is that? Well, because that shaft turns. Like I just said, there's a 45-degree turn to the left, then there's two turns to the right, and then there's another bend further up. So it turns several times. Unlike the shaft on the other side, that is much straighter. That incidentally is the shaft that Robert Duval pointed to Sirius. So
Wow.
line correlation, right? So
Good to see you though, man. Yo, thanks, buddy. Hope you're well. I'm doing well, man. Thanks, buddy. Oh, yeah, man. Thanks, man. I've been chilling, been relaxed. Thanks, buddy.
That basically supported this idea that Orion mattered, and so he, just like Alexander Badawi and Virginia Trimble before him, said that these Queen Chamber shafts must be pointing also to stars, and so he proposed that the southern shaft goes to Sirius and the northern shaft
Hope you're doing well.
in Ursa Minor. Okay.
Yo, big congrats on your bunker 2. Good to see you. Yo, big congrats on bunker 221. That's amazing that you got 24 in the first place, and then that, like, even with this new strat that came out, you would get more points. That's crazy, you know what I mean? That's amazing.
16-foot metal rods.
That's sick, man. Thanks, dude. Yeah, pretty happy with that. Nice, man. That's so good.
Connect them with connectors, right? And so he basically made a longer and longer rod because he didn't know how deep the shaft is, so he kept attaching rods, and then he tells the story how he had to keep going back to the store, to the hardware store in Cairo to buy new rods because it just wouldn't end, okay? So he ended up connecting 11 of these rods into a 175 long nickel-lined rod, and then there's a wooden head at the end of it, and you can see that in the screenshots from in the video that Matt published. You can see that when he finally gets to the end, which is 175 feet up the shaft, you can see the wooden head screwed on top of this metal rod. Okay?
And so we should let people know that those rods are still in place,
yes,
laying in the northern shaft.
Right, because they got stuck, right? So he basically got those rods stuck in there, and then he wrote about it. He said, this is what happened to me. I was trying to measure it, and these rods got stuck. I couldn't get them out.
Alright, I'm gonna stand up and stretch.
Going to find these rods. And he was being conscientious about it to let other people know.
I need to stretch.
Put those items into the shaft.
I have to wait today. Yo, did you nice, buddy? Yeah, buddy. Woo! You must feel good, buddy. You must feel good.
How these items got into the shaft.
That's jokes.
So
That's awesome.
Yeah, because in image, what is it, image 20, I believe, or 19,
Yeah, I did it yesterday and I felt pretty good.
a ticket.
Nice, just a little nice. Back into it, nice, buddy.
That
Oh, you'll feel so
cannot
good.
have been made earlier than 1971
I'm addicted to
or
the
after
endorphins.
1990, okay, because the Egyptian Antiquities Organization
I look
named
forward to
the
like that
ticket on this
endorphin
ticket.
rush
It says
after
access
like
to
about
all
halfway,
information
maybe a third of the way
things,
through.
okay? And this piece of paper
I'm
is
getting
way
like
up in
just
the shaft,
destroyed by
70
these
foot
guards, man.
inside. And not only that, it is close to this strange shadow, this rectangular shadow that looks like an opening.
Need to get back
that
into
we
it?
never
Nice,
knew
man.
existed, okay? And Matt is the one who first, to my knowledge,
Cool,
Matt
man.
Simpson is the first person to publicly acknowledge that there is an opening, or that this rectangular shadow could be an opening. And so based on that, I'm calling this Simpson's window. So from now on, I'm going to refer to this as Simpson's window, subject to confirmation, of course. But he's the one who first described it a couple of weeks ago. And then he also described this ticket. That ticket, interestingly, was recovered by the Pyramid rover. And that's why we know that this ticket exists. So Zaya Was describes the ticket in his 2014 publication. There's also a plastic roller close to where the ticket is, close to Simpson's window. It's a small black plastic roller. It's clearly a modern item. It's not an ancient piece of relic. And so how did that get in there, right? So the question is, how did this piece of paper, how did this plastic piece get into the shaft 70 feet up? We know it couldn't have been...
Yeah, I'm gonna need to get up and stretch.
It's not possible because that
Been
ticket
sitting
didn't
for like
exist
2
then,
hours.
right? We know that Gantenbrink couldn't have done it in 1993 because at that time he was...
Yeah, I'm gonna get up and stretch. Thanks for being here.
And he didn't use rods. And he wouldn't push the paper, he wouldn't have pushed the paper into the shaft, right? Or this plastic roller.
man.
So we know it couldn't have been Gantenbrink, so that means we don't know who did it, okay? Zaya Was, National Geographic, the iRobot team from Massachusetts, the Pyramid rover, they recovered the ticket in 2002. So this ticket must have gotten into the shaft sometime between 1971 and 2002, and we have no idea how it got in there, okay? We have no idea how this plastic roller got in there, and we have no idea what that rectangular shadow is. Is that an opening? And if it is an opening, where does it go? Cliff, you know the internal architecture of the Great Pyramid, right? You know there's nothing immediately next to the northern shaft of the Queen Chamber, right? In fact, that shaft, the reason why it is bent to the left, Egyptologists told us that the reason why it had to be bent to the left is because the Grand Gallery is running just above, right? However, the shaft is bending way more than it had to avoid the Grand Gallery. So there is something else in addition to the Grand Gallery that the builders were trying to avoid. But what is that something else? Well, this is the question I'm asking all of you. You guys should review this video and then you come up with your own ideas. I mean, of course, we've been discussing endlessly every single day. You know, Armando May is an Italian researcher who you may know is an author. He's involved in discussions. Then Jean-Paul Duval is Robert's brother, an architect. So and myself, three of us, and then we're on Facebook. Other people are chiming in. So and Matt Simpson, of course. We're trying to figure out what is this shadow, what is this opening. Why do I think this is an opening, or Matt? Why do we all think it's an opening? Well, because there's rubble with just next to that shadow inside of the shaft, right?
Yeah,
So
I saw that in one of the photos. Yeah.
Right, so in addition to the paper, to the ticket, in addition to the black roller, there's this limestone debris that is not the kind of debris that you get from decay of the stone. It's not like flakes, right? This is actually looks like somebody chipped away limestone and it fell into the shaft.
Nice,
so where does that come from? Well, it means that this is an opening that was packed in from the outside. Well, where is the other side of the shaft? Well, it has to be a corridor, it has to be a chamber, it has to be some kind of...
I think a lot of people
thanks, dude.
like me, and you
Oh, I
need to
do
clarify
like
what
this
I was
chair,
saying
though.
to you, the past
I
week.
do like this chair.
We talked about the Pyramid Scan group and the discovery of this massive void that's about the same.
It is good to
size
stretch,
as
though.
The great corridor,
Yeah, the Grand Gallery.
Grand Gallery.
Right.
That's not close to this shaft, is it?
It's a great question. So, I have an opinion about this. Yes, the shafts, it turns out the two Queen Chamber shafts, the doors, right? Gantenbrink's door on the south and whatever you want to call the door on the north side, okay? I do have a name for it because I just recently tried to translate the writing that I think is on that door, but that's another thing to talk about in a moment. So, but the ends of these two shafts are at the same level where the big void is that you just mentioned. So is there a connection?
Like, who even shot me there?
You know, but at the end of the day, we have to investigate, right, to prove it or falsify it. But it is suggested, yes.
The Japanese French consortium of scientists who did this unique scan, we reported about it here on the program, have not been allowed to investigate that void any further. The idea was, after identification, a unique drone would be created and flown in there to see what is in this space. We don't know if they'll ever get a chance to find out. It upsets so many people, including Lerner and Hawass and many others. Like, I mean, what was confounding is that when the shaft was found, I mean, not the shaft, but this space, people like Hawass were like, so what? So what? Well, it could be a huge discovery.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, there's two ways that I think you could get in. Okay? One is behind the chevron. If
That was pretty good.
the data are correct, there is actually a corridor just behind the chevron.
Yeah,
and
I've seen
corridor.
that.
Yeah. So there could be. All you may have to do is to push the block that's above the mountain sign, right? So when you stand in front of the chevrons, there's a block that looks like the mountain sign, the hieroglyphic sign for mountain, and just above that there's a block. That is behind that block is where this signal comes from. Okay, so I bet you that if you could move that block out of the way, you could access that system if it exists. That's one way. The other way, which is even easier, I think, is the king chamber. So I don't know if you know this, Cliff, but when Piazzi Smith described the king chamber, he found a hole in the northwest corner of the king chamber, in the hole in the floor, basically. And Matt Simpson again, a couple of months ago, published a video where he found two images that were taken from inside of this hole, and it's incredible. That hole actually goes down a couple of meters. So you were saying, you know, how people were standing in various holes around the Sphinx, right? Well, you could stand and completely disappear in the floor of the king chamber. Now, of course, it's cemented.
I am going to raid Eric the director pretty soon, though, to be honest.
You could have stood there. There is a bridge.
I do want to improve, though. I really do.
Underground space. Why is there a brick wall? Those bricks are not made by the ancient Egyptians. So what does that mean? Does that mean there's something behind that brick wall that had to be covered up? Who knows? But if there's an access to this whole system that we don't know about, I bet you can access it.
You know, it's funny because you bring up something quite interesting. The images of this shaft, the northern shaft in the Queen's Chamber, shows freshly cut granite. It looks fairly fresh. It doesn't look very old. And I'm just curious.
You mean
it's almost
limestone? You mean limestone?
Limestone, right? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it's like it's new enough. Like somebody's been cutting away somewhere, and it's fallen into the shaft. It's like, and Hawass is saying he doesn't know about it. It's like,
well, you know what, Cliff? At this point, I don't want to point fingers. I don't want to say.
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
yeah,
it's like.
Yeah, I don't know what he knows, what he doesn't know. All I'm saying is that there's a lot of questions with unanswered. There's a lot of unanswered questions, right? As you just pointed out, right? We can't use this. We can't use this method, that method, right?
Yeah.
Rightfully ask, why not, right? I completely agree with you. All I can do, all you and I can do is ask the question, okay?
Yeah.
And then the Egyptian government has to decide if it wants to.
My worst fear, Manu, my worst fear is that because of the embarrassment, because of the potential for uncovering historical documents that change our history,
yes,
this is a reason for a clandestine team to get in there drilling and cutting away.
Do you remember Planet of the Apes, 1968, Charlton Heston?
Yeah.
That's exactly the story of what you just said, okay? That that
Oh,
when
covering up. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and that's why I put that in the book, right? So this, Cliff, when I saw this painting, okay, I felt like Taylor on the beach, so looking at the Statue of Liberty. This is the chills that were running over my spine when I looked at this painting, okay? Because I'm saying this is incredible. I'm looking at something that doesn't belong in this place in history, okay? And I was just as flabbergasted at this. I had the same emotion that you were just expressing. Yes, I agree with you. They might worry about chaos, about turmoil. Who knows what they're worried? I have no idea. I look at this scientifically. For me, I'm not afraid. This is the thing. When you're a scientist, you're not afraid to find out things. You boldly go when no one has gone before. To quote the famous captain. Okay. What he used to say, no man, and that was politically incorrect. So it was to no one. Okay. But you don't.
Like those darkrooms attempts are getting a little better though. Everything's getting a little better.
This is what we do. This is in our DNA, okay? So for us to be told that we're not allowed to investigate something, it's against our nature. So we are rightfully upset about it. I completely agree with what you're saying. I am just, as frustrated. But you know what? I'm trying to be pragmatic about it. I'm trying to move forward. I'm not trying to step on anybody's feet. Okay, I understand that history, archaeology, they're politically, by the way, in our paper, the Fisher paper, and also in my chapter 11, I get into that. Why archaeology and anthropology are so politically tainted, okay? Where's that coming from? So I do have an analysis about this. But they are, right? So, but I don't want to get into politics, right? I'm just saying I'm a scientist, okay? Here's what we see. You do with that whatever you want, okay? I can't force you to investigate the Great Pyramid. I can't. I can only lay this in front of you, and then you decide what you want to do with it, okay? That's my job. And so that's it.
So for our listening audience, I am going to post this ancient architect video that shows this data, has the debris in this northern shaft. You, Manu, have given us a hint of the anomalous, whatever that is.
I really appreciate you being here and watch me attempt this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You don't know how it got there. The news is, I guess the news is.
Oh, Eric's online. I think we're going to read him. I think we're going to do it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. I really do. Hope to play like an hour or two more frequently, you know what I mean? And like, not just Aztec 00, but
this debris was introduced into the shaft. Okay. Now there's one other type
I really appreciate the viewers. I really do. Thank you everyone for being here. Viathex, Dick, Creator Destroyer, Eric, Terrible Children, the director, Tikaskan. Okay, thank you. I can't read now. Read now. Do it.
There's a reflection
Do it.
as if it's metal. I don't know if it's metal, but it looks like it could be. And there are several of these pieces lying in one area of the shaft. Okay, that's another huge piece of mystery. And then there's another mystery. Close to where the end of that rod is, there's a wooden, it looks like a wooden object, a rod, a wooden rod that has a spear tip or something like that tied to it. That looks like an ancient object. Okay, in fact, that could be the wood from which the